Hey everybody, it's Gary Lucas. Thanks for coming back and visiting here on my Facebook page where I'll be playing mini concerts for you every Tuesday, Thursday, and Saturday. It being Saturday, well, it should be a day off, but like every day is theoretically a day off, although amazingly stressful is it not, considering the current situation. But I hope that what I'm going to play for you will cheer you up and put a smile on your face. I mean, it's certainly cheering me up. So this was called Wild Blue Yonder. Wild Blue Yonder, and that morphed into a film score. I got a commission around the year 2000 from the Film Society of Lincoln Center to develop a project called Sounds of the Surreal that concentrated on 3 French short surrealist films. And that was for a film by the incredible French director of Entr'acte, René Clair. And if you've ever seen that film, it's delightful jape that has cameos by a lot of the great surrealist artists back in the day, including Man Ray and Duchamp and many others. And I hope to get a chance to play with that again. The last time I did was at the Kustendorf International Film and Music Festival in Serbia, right on top of a mountain near the Serb-Croatian border. And I want to thank my friend Emir Kusturica, the great Serbian director, for inviting me to play with that film. And now we're visiting that part of the region. This region of the world is where my roots really lie. And on my father's side, my roots are actually Czech Bohemian. They're actually Austro-Hungarian, but it was from an area in Bohemia that got melded into what became Czechoslovakia. And some years ago, I got a commission from the then UN ambassador to the Czech Republic, Martin Pološ, who was really a great guy in that position and believer in my music. And I gave him a copy of the Chinese pop album that I made, The Edge of Heaven. And he said, well, I would like you to do a program of all Czech classical music. What about that? Can you arrange this for the guitar? So I said, certainly, and I love this music. So I got busy, and on the anniversary of the Velvet Revolution, trying to think what year this was, it could be 2004 or 5, I played a concert of it in D.C. at the Czech Embassy for invited guests. And a record of this came out digitally and also on my friend Richard Metter's label Faust Records, and it's called Gary Lucas Plays Bohemian Classics. So what I'm going to do now is an arrangement for you of one of my favorite pieces of music. It's from a great programmatic suite of music called Ma Vlast, which translates from the Czech into My Homeland. And this is one of the best-known melodies, which is the Moldau, named after the river in Czech. That would be Vltava. And you may know also this music because it was adapted partially as the Israeli national anthem. In researching it, it says that the actual origins point to an Italian tenor named Mantovana. Anyway, it's a fascinating subject for further research. So here we go. I got to tune up again, I'm sorry. This is an open E minor tuning, which I love, and they're very light gauge strings, so I got to be careful. So forgive me for retuning everybody. Here we go. There we go. A little bit better, always in tune. And well, I got you in this tuning. Here's a piece of music called Skin Diving, which I gave to my friend, the great French singer Ellie Medeiros. It's on a record that came out called Coming Clean, and so here it comes. Yeah, skin diving. Oh, we can all dream, can't we? So, I'm going to play a little steel guitar for you. Now, let me pull this the siège tournant closer to the iPhone. And okay. Now I had a request, and I'm not going to be doing more requests unless there's let's say some concerted love put towards these. But this one I'll honor, okay, because I like this tune so much. And it's called Sure Enough and Yes I Do. It's from the very first Captain Beefheart album. And it opens that album. And a young Ry Cooder, I think he was 17 years old, played this lick. And here we go. Now, that's our, all those Beefheart freaks who keep requesting that piece. And you should check out a record that came out, about a year or so ago with a great Nona Hendryx and a great band. It's called The World of Captain Beefheart. And I would say it features some of my best playing on electric guitar. And I also want to direct you... Oh, by the way, Skin Diving is on this greatest hits package, The Essential Gary Lucas. Let's see if I can dig up a copy. Yes. Here it is. I got samples, but it's not technically out on the street until September 11th. But it has a magnificent fold-out package. Beautiful artwork by my friend Steve Byram. He's quite a genius. And fantastic liner notes by my friend Glenn Kenny. It's one of the best critical writers on film and music out there. And I can't wait for you to hear this because it kind of encapsulates as best I could. Anyway, these are, double 2-disc set of what I thought were my favorite songs when I put it together, but it shifts all the time. And also may I direct your attention to this book, albeit backwards, because of iPhone, Touched by Grace, My Time with Jeff Buckley. This came out a couple of years ago in an English language edition from the UK publisher Jawbone Press. It got 4 stars in Mojo, and it was very well reviewed where it got reviewed. It came into the US as a very expensive import, and I was in no position to publicize it beyond my own efforts. So it didn't get a lot of traction, but if anybody is interested in my work with Jeff Buckley and also my earlier life, it's a fairly comprehensive account, especially when it centers on the years 91 and 92, when I came together with this guy who was one of the greatest of all time. And I hope you were watching my friend Christian's Instagram feed last night at 9. I was his guest for some of it. Check him out at Christian, one word, ChrissShinn on Instagram. It might still be up there because he asked me a lot of questions about working with Jeff. But you can find this, I know it's on Amazon, but if you want an autographed copy of this and a lot of my work, it's all available on my website at www.garylucas.com. And check it out, because some of these things are long out of print, but I was able to obtain some hard copies. And then there's a lot of stuff that's on Spotify. I figure it's ripe for discovery at your fingertips. I know a lot of people are listening in that mode these days. I am not one of them, but that's me. Anyway, what else can I say? Well, let's go over to electric guitar here. And this is for the Buckley freaks. I'm going to do a little bit of the Mojo Pin music. And I'm going to show you how it originally ended on a demo I cut in the studio right after I wrote this song with Jeff. Just to give you some background, I met him at this tribute to his father, Tim Buckley, in 1991 in the spring. And we hit it off right away. And the producer, Hal Wilner, who just tragically passed away, an early COVID victim, he suggested that we meet and work together. And so we were writing a song almost from day one, actually on day one, when he came over to rehearse one of his father's songs with me. And then later on, he threw in a partnership to create a new version of my band, Gods and Monsters, which had been running since 1989, mainly as an instrumental group, and then it morphed into a band with a lead singer. And at that point, I had no lead singer, and I was really hoping I'd meet a guy like Jeff, and there he walked in. So he was pretty gung-ho. And then I had to come up with music for us very quickly. It's a long, bloody story, and it's in my book, but basically, after coming back from a 3-week tour of all over Europe on a Knitting Factory tour of James Blood Ulmer, myself, a band called Chunk, and the late Thomas Chapin and his trio, I was informed unceremoniously by a junior A&R guy that this project I had labored towards fashioning for Columbia Records for 2 years then had been unceremoniously kicked to the curb. A new A&R person to come in, and he thought it was weird. It didn't have his fingerprints on it. blah, blah. And so he said, well, I'm sorry to let you know this. When I called up there, and I was aghast, and I said, well, how can you do this? We have a written contract. So this is good for all you musicians out there who are just sort of getting into this business of music. The junior A&R guy said, well, you can't afford to sue us. That's true. They have batteries of lawyers in these major labels, and they'll wear you out financially, if not time-wise. So that was it, and I said, what? How can you do that? He just said, well, maybe we can have lunch. I didn't want to have lunch with this guy or see him ever again. I never have. Thank God. And anyway, my wife was freaked and came in and said, how can you do this? You have to get your day job back. We don't have health insurance, which was true. And I just rallied and I said, look, I'm going to keep going in music. I'd had initial early success, and I'd left my day job with this contract to make this album with the singer. Now it blew up in my face. But I have Jeff waiting in the next day to start working on music for Jeff Buckley to sing. And how I liked to write was, I composed instrumentals and I could hear his voice on them in my mind. Liberate your mind and, flow upstream or downstream as it may be, go with the flow. And that's how it worked for me and still does. So I had this great, these parts. This sounded like a question. Here's the answer. Here's that question, a very plaintive question. Stern answer. Wistful question. Stern answer. Etc. So I'd already had this part, this what I call the bolero section. And so when we ended the song, Jeff told me he was a hardcore fan. He loved the Bad Brains and Dinosaur Jr. and a lot of grunge rock, and so I thought, okay, I'm going to give him a section to really go to town on. And so at the very end of the demo, which has never come out officially, there are bootlegs floating around, but it's still never been released, we go into a hardcore section. I'm going to step over here. I don't have my elaborate pedal set up, but you'll get the idea here. Went into this riff. And I freaked out on guitar on top of this. And Jeff moaned and did whatever he did, writhed on the floor, and it was very effective live. And, well, let me switch off that. Noise. So all that is to say, when he finally got up to Bearsville Studio to record the song properly, someone along the way decided it was a little bit too much beyond human comprehension, this section. I don't really know why, because I thought it was a really good tension and release device. So if you ever get to hear the original demo, I hope you agree and you like it. And but we did it live, and it was very effective. So that is to say, it got snipped, and the song just ends as it begins with my drone guitar. Yep, that's me. I open and close. I opened the Grace album. That's my guitar. And went up there to record these parts with him. But try as I might, I couldn't get the quota reinstated. Oh well. It was creative decision. So it's almost time to go now. And I'll leave you with one last little piece. I mentioned earlier in a previous concert, mini concert, whatever you'd like to call these little hits, that after Jeff, the best collaborator I ever had was an Indian singer based in London named Najma Akhtar, who really was great working with whatever I handed her musically. And so we did a record together called Rishte on OK Music, which you should check out. So this is a piece on it called Pansif. Okay, that's pensif, a French word for sadly thoughtful. I'm sadly happy and thoughtful, Gary. Thank you so much for coming into my living room and letting me entertain you. I love to play for you guys, and I'll see you again on Tuesday. Have a great weekend. Stay safe. Let's get through this thing together. And big hugs.